sure we're all on base. Okay.
Okay, we can wait.
Just barely. Barely.
Yeah.
You good?
We're on.
All right. Go ahead and bring the Warrenton Board of Aldermen meeting for October 4th, 2016 to session. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda.
First item is the work session minutes from September 13, 2016 regarding the TIP training and regular meeting minutes from September 20th, 2016.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
I'll second.
Is that by Bob?
Yes.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderperson Kessley,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next on my agenda is hearing from the public. We ask that you come to the podium, announce who you are, and keep it to a 5-minute maximum, please.
I guess y'all take enough heat, but I wanted to say thank you for last week. Y'all did wonderful. The planning and all went into it. Everybody was impressed, especially me, and I really think you did outstanding. You too, Ock.
I appreciate that. I don't do that very often.
It was very nice, and I know my family appreciated it.
Good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, paper.
We didn't keep you up too late then, right?
Oh, you just kept me up all night.
Anybody else? All right, moving on to the Board of Aldermen comments.
I'm assuming you're going to talk about last week in yours.
Well, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can
No.
preempt me.
No.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just comment on how great I thought it was. The city crew just did a fabulous job. I mean, how many hours people put in, but it had to be tons of hours. I know I talked to the guy, and he said he figured he'd be out there until 2 o'clock at least getting stuff wrapped up. And the crew you people just did a fabulous job. I think it was a great event. The city team worked very well. And I was very proud to be a citizen of Warrenton for that.
Top notch.
Yeah, and Alderman Miller and I were at the luncheon, the quarterly luncheon, Friday at noon with all the employees, and we, on behalf of the board, and especially, I know Karen, she texted me to make sure I passed her congratulations along, but we both spoke on behalf of the board that we thought they did a great job. And I think the good thing about it is it's not a mandatory thing. They volunteer, and I think we managed to get enough of them to volunteer for it and everything. I mean, I know it's still they're paid,
Sure.
but to get to have everybody pitch in like that shows. I think they take some pride in what they do. So we tried to express appreciation for that too.
Yeah. And I was really pleased with the day because of the number of civic organizations around the community who actually came down and participated. I thought that was a great opportunity for them to earn money, of course, and just to be part of the community. And I thought that was a really, really special to see that number of civic organizations down here helping us with the event. And the other thing I think we need to recognize, I read the minutes of the Tourist Commission. The Tourist Commission obviously plays a role in that and should be congratulated for their role. And I was just thrilled to see their decision that next year they want to keep it downtown instead of moving it to a different location, because I think being downtown just kind of gives it a flavor you don't get anywhere else.
I think they, and Terry can probably vouch for that. it was a, a tough decision. I mean, it's a lot of work for the city, not just the city crew, but the police department and everybody. I mean, but there were a few glitches, but nothing major. And I think that's the thing that we talked about in the tourism meeting, that the people I talked to all afternoon said there's a lot to be said for having it downtown. It just brings some that local flavor to it and everything. And they're afraid if we would move it to another location, you would lose that and maybe lose some support of the city and the surrounding, not the city in general, but the citizens and the surrounding area in general. So we've got some changes we want to make. There's going to be some costs involved with as far as adding electric service up the street where the car show is. So there'll be some money to be spent even before the next one. So they said they'll be coming to us for that. So we want to hopefully we'll be able to still support them in that. So.
Well, listen, the one negative question I got during the whole event, people want to know, why does the city have the lights on all day long? They got money to burn? Well, there was a good reason the lights are on, so we get electricity, all the vendors, but people look at everything and they have questions. Of course, if you got a car show and you're sitting at your car for 4 or 6 hours, you look around a lot, you have a lot of things to see, and I guess you notice the lights right away. But, the electricity is an issue, and I'm glad we can look at ways to address it.
I had a great time too.
No,
Set the
that's
bar
okay.
high. I don't know how we're gonna top it next year.
It's going to be tough. It was a wonderful, everyone did a great job.
Yeah.
Looking forward to next year, Mike.
And again, that was the thing that come up. I have a lot of questions. Well, how are you going to top it next year, band-wise or whatever? And I don't think we want to necessarily always top it.
Oh, yeah, we do.
There's nothing wrong. We had a great crowd, and yeah, we can always try to bring in bigger entertainment or better entertainment than that. But I don't want to get to the point where it does, require us to leave downtown. I mean, we can still handle a few people, but downtown a couple thousand maybe. I don't know, but. So I don't know that we need to always set the bar higher. Let's just, maintaining a good quality program, I think, is important. So we'll still try to
Raise it just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
Little bit.
Okay.
Let Karen ride the elephant on Main Street.
Yeah, no.
No.
Dunking booth for the mayor.
There you go.
All right, just a springboard off that, not only do I agree with all the comments about thank you to everybody at the city for what they've done, something I'd like to also say is thank you for all the people that turned out. I mean, as far as I remember, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had very minimal incidents.
Very minimal.
Maybe
It was a really great crowd.
one verbal altercation that was rectified very quickly, and a couple medical issues, and that was about it. So, I mean, that's compliments to the people that came out, that kept their cool and enjoyed a concert. Sometimes we're not able to do that, and I appreciate that from the people that came out and supported the event as well. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it did instill a lot of pride in a lot of people, and kind of put us on the mark. And I'm very happy for that. Is there anything else I was supposed to say?
You're good.
Okay.
Don't forget the circus.
I see the circus is coming up, folks. I'm sure I'll be up there once again. I always enjoy going to the circus. I don't know if I'll ride the elephant this year or not, but we'll have to see how that goes. Maybe I'll dance with the camels or something. But definitely come out. It's a fun time every time. Moving on, the appointment of Ken Jacikis to the TIF Commission to replace Cheryl Dyer. Questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Ken Jacikis to the TIF Commission to replace Cheryl Dyer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, second by Alderperson Kessley. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderperson Casterly?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda would be the Truesdale's letter of support for interchange project. Mayor Brewer, always nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen. Appreciate the opportunity to explain my project, and I also want to congratulate you on your fair that Saturday. It was really nice, and also the interchange that you all finally got taken care of. However you want to handle this, if you want to just ask me questions, or do you want me to give you a brief as to what my thoughts are, what I'm doing up to this point? I mean, I'd do it either way, whichever way, or both, you know.
Yeah, why don't you give us
Just a
kind
brief.
of a little bit of the background on
Okay.
what got this rolling and everything.
Okay. Several months ago, you all were in the planning stages, well, more than several months, for your interchange. And one of the things that came up, it was safety, traffic safety at 47, which is kind of like a focal point for the Warrenton area. And I kind of held off for a little bit thinking about it, but I contacted MoDOT, Eric Meninga, the bridge and road engineer, and asked him the feasibility of a exchange at South Spady Road. And he gave me a copy of a report from 2002 that stated that they, and this was a pretty much statewide, but our section, that came up, and they thought at the time they were talking about Strax Church Road. But he said they really still think we need something prior to 47 because the truck traffic has increased tremendously. 2015, Boonslick RPC did a road survey of Spady Road, and they averaged in 2 days' time about 200 plus multi-axle vehicles just on South Spady Road. So I started talking to our businesses in the industrial park, because the majority of them all have a fleet of trucks, and just to feel them out as to their routes into Truesdale to their businesses. And most of them thought that Spady Road would be good because they thought Strax Church was still a little bit too far east. They'd still have to travel to South Service Road. I did a survey over a period of about 3 months myself. Of course, it's unofficial, but I'd say probably a little under 40%, I would say 38, 39% of the multi-axle tractor trailers came into Truesdale from one route or another. The businesses said the problem with them is getting off at 47. It's an extra 10 and 15 minutes to navigate through to come down M to Truesdale to their businesses. And also the South Service Road from Wildcat in Wright City, they complain about that, not complain, but they mentioned the fact that this is a bad route because it's so narrow, hilly, and he said they run across constantly, not just car traffic, but school buses, even kids on bikes, and the drivers of these tractor trailers are really concerned about it. So I thought, well, I think I got enough evidence there to talk to MoDOT to see what the feasibility was. And like I said, I talked to Eric Meninga, and he said that it was very feasible, and he thought that would be the right route to go. So my plan was, and then you all still are in process of your interchange, so I just held off doing anything until you all finalized it, whichever way it went, and I would know which direction for us to go, or me to go. And like I say, congratulations, you got your interchange going, and hopefully it'll help all of us, which I'm sure it will. So then I again started making phone calls. I visited all of the businesses in the park, and I asked them what their support would be, and they said, "Well, send us a letter of support. We'll see what we can do." Well, I received several. I did do that a few months ago, and I did get several back, and most of them covered the safety issue, is what they were thinking. Is we're growing. We've got more and more trucks coming into that area. A new company, Archer, bought the old copper plant property. That's all trucking, and they keep, I'd say, a couple of dozen in and out all day long, just that one company. So, in the meantime, I have asked Boonslick to do a traffic count for me at different intersections. And if it comes into your city, I told them be sure you check in with the city hall here to let them know what you're doing and why we're doing it. And it's just strictly how many axle type breakdown we can get. And multi-axle is what we're looking for, of course. Like I said, I received a lot of callbacks. I received a lot of letters of support, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask all the cities too, because it's going to affect all of us, and that's why I sent you all a letter of support. And at this point, the only thing I've done is I've talked again. As a matter of fact, Monday I talked again with MoDOT, and he gave me some directions and some thoughts, but. I think it's a good project, and I think I'll get a lot of support of it. Well, I have already, and I'm sure I'll get a lot more. Did I skip anything? I'm at that point now where it's like in its infancy. I'm not really.
Well, Murray,
Yes,
I read the letter, and I liked, certainly makes good sense to me, and if there's anything that we can do to help you, don't hesitate. Because it's always exciting to see other citizens want to move to progress.
That's all we got. We have to do that. We have to get
So
our.
whatever we can do to help, I certainly am all for it.
Well, I do appreciate that, and of course, the mayor and I, we talk off and on, and we kind of keep each other updated, and I'll certainly, if there's anything that I think that you could help with, I'll certainly get in touch.
Okay.
Anybody else, any questions?
Well, I have to honestly admit, when I saw this on the agenda, I thought you were actually giving us a letter of support for our overpass, because I don't think you ever did that.
We never did get one.
No.
No.
And that's what I thought this was. I was pretty excited, and I'm like, wait a second, that ain't what that says.
Well, it would have been a little controversial for me being chairman of the Boonslick RPC, because that's where it had to come through, and then being the mayor of Truesdale, it was kind of. But no, I never did receive a request for support.
Any questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve a letter of support for the interchange project.
So moved.
I think I'd rather have some more
I'd
conversations about this as
can
well.
we defer this for a meeting to think about it for a week or two?
Yeah, because
from
I was
my
totally
perspective.
thinking this letter was totally opposite of what it was. I thought you were actually giving us one for the first time. Because I think we've tried to get letters of support from the city of Truesdale for ours, and I know we've tried to work on.
Well,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Just gonna table
No,
it.
this-
Yeah, I'd like to table the motion.
And again, this is in its infancy. It's
Yeah.
not something that's going to happen probably even my lifetime, depending on funding. And so all I'm doing is gathering the support and then start delving into where funding could come from, start researching that. So we're talking probably years.
Start
Like I
from-
say, I probably won't even be around if it's ever built, but you never know.
You
But
never
I
know.
can appreciate that. You want
Yeah.
to sit and talk about it?
Yeah,
Sure,
I
would
would.
too.
Yep.
I still appreciate your efforts, Murray, for
Yep.
wanting to move forward with any project.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with that.
I agree with
absolutely.
that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm, I agree.
It's all for the area. We've got nowhere to go but build our economic development problems, and this is what draws, like you're expecting with you bring another one, interpass in here, they say there's progress, and they look at us, the Home Building Association especially, and boom, you know, that starts the ball rolling.
Well, I think there's a lot of things we can work on together. I mean, one of the things that we were trying to do just recently was sharing the cost of the,
Oh, that street, yeah.
of the street. It's half in Truesdale and half in Warrenton. I mean, those are things we need to work together on. So, you know, I think if we can start doing some of that joint work together and have that cooperation, that just goes further into bigger projects like this.
That was a project that would have helped the traffic concern, because as trucks were to turn onto the South Service Road and head toward Truesdale, would have made it safer and better for them.
I just think there's things that we can start working on like that aren't necessarily so long.
We're always
away.
open for discussion, because
Yeah.
as you know, it's up to the board when they're presented to them.
Yeah,
I'm willing to do that at any time.
okay. Perfect.
All right,
That it?
Okay,
that is.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
We'll speak about it. Thank you, Mary. We'll get back in touch with you.
So what's the decision then? What's decided?
Well, I believe if we're gonna go ahead and wanna speak about it a little more, if there's several board members that are wanting to move forward with it, we'll table it till next meeting.
Well, but I guess, do we have you made a motion, right?
No,
Oh, you
I
suggested a
just
motion.
said I would entertain a motion.
I
There was no
would-
motion made.
I said I would so move, I would make the motion, and I don't understand why we want to discuss support of another township trying to move forward. But maybe there's more history to all this than I'm aware of, but there's nothing in this letter that they're asking any of us to do other than to be a neighbor. And I don't know what there is to talk about.
If we made the motion, and if we have a second on the motion, then
Okay.
we'll have to visit it.
Okay, so let's talk about it then. Well, I understand the principle of being supportive. I understand the principle of moving forward. I guess what I'm confused about is when the other community visits with the highway department encourages the project, but the highway department has no financial way to support the project. It seems like it's a little bit dreaming in that sense. I mean, we had to fight hard to find resources to support the project. And, I would like to see what the thoughts are on how this project financially would be supported. And he's already left, I'm sorry, he's left, but, I mean, what is the thinking of the city of Truesdale, how this is gonna be supported? And I'd just be kinda curious about that. Are they gonna propose a countywide tax to do this? Or are they going to, I guess there's a lot more information, and even though you read the letter before the meeting, you're kinda a little bit trying to absorb what the direction is, what the motive is, and that type of stuff. And quite frankly, what the impact of that would be on the project we're working on.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I don't know
my
if there
thoughts.
is any impact.
I don't either, and
I
that's
don't
why I
think
want
it's
to.
two-
Well, I don't
two
think
different
there
issues.
is any impact, probably like Murray said, and we foresee ours, the one out here being done by August 2018, and he doesn't foresee this one happening maybe in his lifetime, so I don't know I think it's something that, he's throwing out there to get the conversation started. I don't think, like you say, I agree, where's the funding gonna come from? I don't even think they've thought about that. Again, it's just, he's throwing a line out there to get some conversation started. One thing I did ask him about was, Federal Highway Authority, they want the exits to be a minimum of 2 miles apart. That is like 1.1 mile from 47. So it may not even be feasible. But again, I think it's a fishing expedition. And, I think he's just looking for
I agree
support
100%.
to pursue, to pursue a little farther.
I guess if the letter was more broadly spoken to say that we want to consider an exit to the east and see what the viabilities of that are, as opposed to specifically tying it to a location. I'd have less of a problem with that, because, I mean, quite frankly, if the community was gonna try to support something, to me, it would be way more logical to do maybe Stretch Turk and look at that as a viable alternative to how can we get this thing through. If we throw our support for it, are we gonna have better luck doing that than trying to go after a Spady Lane, which was clearly within the 2-mile corridor. And if he had come in here and said, would you support us as we try to find an interchange to the east, I think my answer would be yeah. I wouldn't have any problem with that, but by narrowing the request down to that specific location and having just looked at issues surrounding it, that's where I have a little bit of problem with it, I guess.
And my problem with it isn't, it really isn't supporting Truesdale. I really wish, in the last 3.5 years that I've been on the board, that has gone both ways. And so I'm open to, that participation between their aldermen and our Board of Aldermen. My concern is, I honestly, and I admit it up front, I read this letter thinking that they were giving us a letter of support for our overpass. That's what I thought was on here, and I should have read it beforehand without doing my due diligence before the meeting to know whether or not this will have any impact on our overpass legally in the development phase, in the loan phase, and all the different processes we have going, because there's a lot involved with ours. I want to make sure that supporting another overpass doesn't somehow affect what we have going. That's all. And we haven't had the chance to do the due diligence because I did not read the letter right.
Well, we, for one thing, and that was one of the questions I asked, and I think you were at the meeting when we met with Murray that one time when we talked about, City of Warrenton never formally asked for a letter of support from Truesdale.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
No,
I
but
thought that's what this was.
But hold on, guys, hold on.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We never formally asked for one, because when we were talking to Murray that time, he was, he wanted to stay neutral on the issue because of the stuff that was going on with the Strax Church thing. And he later told me that even when we talked to him that time, that this was something he had already started thinking about because of the way the Strax Church was catching opposition. And so
My
that's
point is,
why.
though, this has nothing to do with that. I'm telling you my error in reading this with the assumption that that's what it was versus what it is. And I did not do my due diligence as a board member to find out all the facts and whether this would have any effect on our ability to keep going forward with our loan process and with everything that we're trying to do. That's all I went. I've not had the chance to check with legal or anybody else to say, if the city goes ahead and supports another entity that close to Warrenton, will that have any effect? That's what I want to know. That's all. And
Well, I'm certainly not an attorney, but reading this letter, I can't imagine, and I don't disagree, if this had any effect on our project whatsoever, I certainly wouldn't want to support it, Karen.
Right.
So with that being said, maybe we should turn this over to the attorney and have him read the letter, and if there's anything in there that would hindrance our progress at all.
Well, so we've been in the throes of the development agreement, the loan application process, and all this other stuff that we've been working on. So quite honestly, from a staff perspective, we really have not delved into this request because we've just been trying to get everything processed as required under our development agreement.
Mhm.
So I would honestly ask the board, we have a deadline coming up October 11th for some mechanisms in our development agreement. If we can get past our finalization of the loan and everything for our construction of the overpass, to give us then time to look at it, maybe answer some of those questions. What happened when at the last TAC committee meeting was a letter requested just to give you guys some information and maybe give some information from a staff perspective? That would be great, because I'm nervous about doing anything because I do have a concern. I don't want to send a letter and then something to happen. Not that I think that could happen, Alderman Miller, but our entire focus has been 100% on finalizing our overpass. And I'm not talking about putting this off for a year, but maybe a month or two, so we can just get past ours and give us a time to kind of dig into this and really evaluate the request for a letter and what does that support mean. That would be really, I think, the best position for the city where we could give an answer to you guys to say, hey, this doesn't affect it, this is the history of it and everything like that, so we're not, you know, there's just so many deadlines coming up very quickly. I don't want to shift our focus from our overpass onto theirs and give us time to kind of give you guys a response and say, hey, we don't think this affects it, or this is what MoDOT says, or whatnot.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
I don't think Murray would have a problem with delaying it, so, you know, that,
I'm just not prepared to answer
And
that.
I'm not
That's-
saying I wouldn't vote for it, I'm just saying,
I just
there's
wanna
some
make sure.
consideration here.
Yeah,
It's
and,
a good
and-
point, a good
and
point.
sitting here, my concern is, I just want to finalize everything we have that we can get, then look at this, because, you know, there are so many things, you know, we have to complete to get this thing moving on the timeline that it is, that it just would be really nice if we could meet some of those deadlines and get past some of those. So even if we put it off a month, that would be great from my perspective, because then we can get everything as much as possible finalized before we look at this. And that would really be my request, because I'm just not prepared to answer that tonight.
Let me go ahead and answer the question that was brought up before, though. The motion is made by Alderman Miller for the letter of support for the interchange project for Truesdale. If there's not a second, the motion,
There's a second.
I thought we were
Nobody has
having a
seconded it.
discussion.
Well, so Mike seconded.
no, I didn't say.
no one has seconded it
No,
yet.
I mean,
There-
honestly,
there-
I'd ask John if you consider maybe withdrawing the motion. so
Well,
that we
well,
can-
give me
I
a
thought we
second.
were discussing this.
Give me a second here. If there is not a second in the motion, then the motion dies, and the consideration of tabling this motion can be brought back up.
Okay, well, I thought Karen brought to table it for discussion.
She
And
did.
then we said, let's talk about it, and this was a great discussion, and that was a great explanation, Chris.
Thank you.
And with that being said, then I would like to make a motion that we table this until all of our business is done at hand on the interchange that we're working on.
I'd love to do that, but the motion has been made, we have to let it die
We have to let
first.
that die.
Well,
I-
Okay.
Unless you want to
Well, you can
withdraw
withdraw
it.
it.
You can withdraw, that's a second choice, but either one. If there's not a
Okay.
second, it dies anyway.
All right, I'll withdraw that one and make this motion.
Alderman Miller withdraws the first motion.
That was a
Officially.
great explanation, Chris, and it was a great discussion board. So when we were done with our business at hand, with our overpass, then we will consider the support of this letter.
So the motion is to table the letter of support, Truesdale's letter of support for the interchange project, until we are finished with the business at hand with our project currently.
That's correct.
And then we will readdress.
Second that if we need one.
You do. Okay, seconded by Alderperson Casterly. Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Wow.
After all that, yes.
Alderperson Casterly?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Thank you guys for understanding my failure to do my job before the meeting.
It's
Motion
all
carries
good. I'm glad
6-0.
everybody did their job. We did good.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda would be hearing from Shannon Creighton. Please come forward. The amendment to the sales tax ordinance. Number 2272.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Shannon Creighton. I'm an attorney with Gilmore and Bell. We're your counsel with respect to the economic development sales tax and the creation of the tax increment financing district here in the city. The first item on your agenda that I'd like to discuss relates to the economic development sales tax. As we discussed previously, the statute does require that the city create an economic development sales tax board, which, much like a TIF commission, is an advisory body that will review an economic development sales tax plan, which is essentially a document that will show how that tax will be used. That board will be made up of 5 individuals, 3 representatives of the the city, 1 representative of the county, and 1 representative of the school. Their role is to, again, review that economic development sales tax plan, hold a public hearing, and then make a recommendation to you all. Your are the final say, and if that plan is adopted, they are a recommending body only. The ordinance before you is an amendment to the tax ordinance you adopted back in in May, and it creates that board. And it goes through, it tracks the statute. Do you all have any questions related to that?
Well, what are they really reviewing on? I mean, they're reviewing the sales tax plan. Well, what is the sales tax plan? What document will this group of 5 people be sitting and staring
Right.
at when they meet?
That plan, it's actually a 1 to 2 page document that's prepared by myself with the assistance of city staff and the city attorney that will review how the economic development sales tax is going to be used. So to the extent it's being used to pay debt service on your loan for the interchange, that is what that document will say. It will be very short.
But isn't that already laid out in what we passed? So they're making a recommendation on something that the board's already adopted, that the voters have voted for, and now they're coming along to do.
I
Isn't it kind of redundant?
Yes, I understand your question completely. The sales tax, because the proposition was so limited with respect to that sales tax, that plan cannot be anything else. It will track the language of the ballot proposition. So it can't be used for any other purpose.
So
it will be-
basically, if we had tried to pass something a little more complex,
Right,
then this board would have a little more activity.
yes.
These should be very short meetings for these 5 board members.
Should be. So with respect to the calendar and the next items for this board, if you all adopt this ordinance tonight, notices will go out to the county and the school district requesting them to appoint their members. The initial meeting of that board we are anticipating to be held on November 9th, where they will schedule that public hearing, which would occur on December 1st, subject to their availability. And then an ordinance will be brought before you all on December 6th at your regular meeting on that date to consider adoption of the ordinance adopting that economic development sales plan.
So if I read these correctly, and these bills already have in them the whole discussion about sunsetting.
Sunsetting?
On the tax.
On the
On
tax?
taxes, yeah.
Yes, this does not change the sunset of the taxes at all.
Okay, because that was one question that a number of people had, is why isn't the sunset provision in the ballot language?
That language is in the ordinance, and this does not change it.
Okay, this is not, but it reinforces it in essence.
Correct.
I stayed at Halloween last night. Well, I just want to make sure.
No, I agree.
We've never walked through this before. I just, when something becomes redundant, you have to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
The voters have already decided, we decided to put something to the voters decided to do it. Now we're going to come back and select an advisory body to
Do what we
basically
said.
tell us to do what we said we do, or tell us don't do what we said we do. It doesn't make a lot of logic, but then against the law.
Well, your thoughts are well taken. It is a statutory process,
Right, okay.
so,
It's just if we had made our ordinances and our tax wording more complicated.
Or more vague.
or simple. I
Or
mean, you
more
could have
vague.
said for economic development purposes,
Right.
and it's a wide variety of purposes.
Right.
But because yours is so limited, it is what it is. But it is a statutory process we have to go through.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
How about this one? The next
Okay.
one I have.
Okay. The next item on the agenda that we're going to ask you to consider is an ordinance establishing a relocation policy for the city. As we discussed, there is a redevelopment plan under the TIF Act that is required, that is being prepared by Development Dynamics on your behalf, that is going to be reviewed by the TIF Commission. One of the findings in that redevelopment plan is that there is a relocation policy adopted by the city. Although it is not intended that there will be eminent domain used for this TIF. In fact, the city has said explicitly there is not going to be eminent domain. And a relocation policy is still required. So this ordinance adopts the provisions of the relocation statute under Chapter 523 of the Missouri statutes. Briefly, it provides that displaced persons that are within a redevelopment area subject to a TIF are entitled to receive, one, a notice of their rights under this act or this policy. They have 90 days to vacate their property if they're going to be relocated. They are to be offered 3 suitable alternative sites where they could relocate. And they are offered a payment of their moving expenses, and for businesses, a payment with respect to reestablishing their business at a different location. This policy, it is important to note that when you all are entering into that redevelopment agreement, that contract between the city and the developer, that agreement will require that the developer comply with this policy. So if there are persons that or businesses that are going to be relocated because of that specific developer's project, they will be required to comply with this policy. So offer those payments, offer those notices, that timing. In addition to that, the developer could, as part of their negotiation, because there's no eminent domain, in their negotiation with those persons, they could settle, and those people can waive their rights under this policy. So that's between the developer and those persons, but it would be the developer's responsibility to comply with this policy.
So, Shannon, does that mean would this be for existing businesses, like in the mall area, once the new developer takes over? And if he would have to take over their spots or something, that they have existing businesses? Is that what, would that work? Would that have to be adhered to on this?
Yes, I mean, if they are going to be displaced due to that project and not relocated within the center and they did not waive their rights, the developer would have to comply with this policy and offer these benefits. This is a minimum as well. I should note that your redevelopment agreement can increase the benefits if you so choose.
Well, of course, if we're going to increase the benefit, we have to know, I guess, I have to have a more thorough understanding what the benefit is, but it's laid out in state statute. Now, just to review, there are no homes within the redevelopment area, correct?
That's
So we're not- If this were to happen, we're not talking about some of these homes here. So what we're talking about is any active businesses within the redevelopment area, which there's a handful, I think, businesses in the mall currently. So it would be, really what we're talking about is something that could be applicable to them.
Correct.
And so how would we, if we want to have other considerations in the agreement, when would we draft that up? Because I thought those agreements were pretty well put in place already.
Not that agreement. That agreement will occur at the time you all adopt the redevelopment plan. There will be a separate ordinance adopting a redevelopment agreement. That contract has not been negotiated yet. So, and we will only negotiate that agreement with each developer when they initiate their project area. So right now, it's anticipated that RAK, the former outlet mall, will be the only one that will be initiating the project area. So you'll have one redevelopment agreement being negotiated. The other developers may come later, and at that point we'll negotiate those agreements.
Any other questions? Comments?
No.
And,
Thank you, Shannon.
number 11 has been removed.
Oh, that's right, yeah, we didn't have that ready.
Right, correct. Thank you again, Shannon.
Thanks.
All right, next item on the agenda would be the preservation of the old Warrenton Banner newspaper.
I was contacted by Barbara Gettemeyer, who lives in Kansas City, Missouri. She was going through some old stuff. She's in the process of moving, and she come across a newspaper, the newspaper that I took a picture of for you, that was owned by James Stewart, who was her grandfather. And it's the 50th edition, or 50th anniversary of the Warrenton Banner. And at the bottom, it's dated December 18th, 1914. I did kind of open it up just a little bit, just because, kind of take a look through it, because the pages are really brittle. So you gotta be really careful. But it talked about some of the stores that were still here in Warrenton at the time. Different names came up, I think, on the ledger books of different people that had done business in Warrenton, I think was one of the things that we'd come across. And just to give you a little bit of history on James Stewart, she had told me as a little boy he had came over from Scotland with his parents, and he attended, or he studied medicine at Barnes Jewish, and he came back to Warrenton. Now, I don't know if he came back right away or if he came back later, but he came back to Warren County to be the doctor here, and he had homing pigeons. And that was the way that the families would contact him in the case of emergency, or if somebody went into labor, they would keep one of the homing pigeons and send a note to him, letting him know it was time for him to come out.
That's pretty cool.
You know, I read that, I think the whole thing is really cool. I wonder if this is better handled by the Historical Society? Because, I mean, I don't know that we have the expertise in the city to do with this, and the Historical Society would be better equipped to receive the donation, preserve the document. It's just a thought. 'Cause, you know, for years, we used to have the old cemetery that's just to the north of the pool, and that was part of what we took care of and maintained, and the Historical Society ended up taking that over as part of what was under their auspices. So, I mean, it's just a thought. You know, would that make a little bit more sense if the donor would allow us to forward that to the Historical Society, assuming they would accept it? I don't know if they would, but.
I do know she did try to contact him a couple of times, and she never received a call back. That's why she called me. So I can do that if you'd like, though.
I mean, it's just a thought.
Or I could check into pricing to see how much preservation would cost, because it's about possibly maybe 20 or 30 pages. There's a lot of stuff in it.
Can you do both?
I can do both.
Give an option.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Pardon me.
I just hate to see it, you know, just
Oh,
sitting
no.
there.
Yeah, no, we want to preserve it.
That's really
Just to figure
awesome.
out-
But do we want to?
I agree with Gary that it should be the Historical Society, but if no one wants to respond, I certainly think we should assist.
You want to wait and see what the options are, if the Historical Society will just put this off the agenda now for approval?
Sure.
Seek our options.
I think so.
Are they agreeable down there too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely don't want it to
We'll go ahead and table
get
it until you
destroyed.
can figure out.
Well,
the
that's really
options
cool.
available.
And no, my picture's in there.
Your picture's in there?
No, I said, no, it's not. Just for the record, I was not around in 1914.
I do like your haircut.
Next item will be the approval for destruction of records. You want to tackle this one?
It's just the list of every year we go through and purge records, and the audit's over with. So this is the list for this year of records to be destroyed.
Any questions or comments?
I make a motion that we destroy the records.
Second,
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock.
that would look pretty bad in the campaign thing if you had, somebody came up and said, did you agree to destroy records?
Yeah. And I will say, yes, I did.
Yes, I
And
did.
this is why.
But it was not on a private server.
Roll call vote.
Alderperson Cassidy?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Anytime. Actually, they're not even mine.
You guys are sad.
Oh. I'm not sick, it's the
Well, you got them
sinus.
hiding down there.
He's got a stash.
We're waiting for the first hard freeze.
Next item on the agenda will be hearing from Director of Operations and Finance Officer Terry Thorne.
My first item for you this evening is approval of the tourism recommendations from their meeting on September 27th. They had 3 requests. The first was for the farmer's market for 1/2 of the cost of their advertising for customer appreciation ad, which was $67.62. There was a request from Holiday Inn and the Fastlane convenience stores for the interstate attraction signs that they have out on I-70. And the Tourism Commission recommended approval of $600 each, which is their limit per their policy and their budget for the signs of this type. Total recommended items is $1,267.62.
Questions?
No, the only question could somebody kind of update as to how the farmers markets, what kind of year they had? Because I know this is the second year we've done it in town, and the third, and we really struggled to try to get that thing going. We feel like we're going down the path, or what's?
Today was actually their last day of this year's season. We will be speaking with the market master to see how their season went now that they've wrapped up. But I can tell you just from watching the market, there were a much larger number of vendors at each of their market days this year than we had previously. And they had a good number of customers that were over there every day that the market was open. So I'll have to speak with him and find out exactly how well they did. But just from observation, it appears that they had a very good year, and it continues to increase as far as customers and vendors that are there.
Gary, he does come before the
Good.
Tourism Commission and give a report, and I forget what time it is. I think
It's
it's
after
like
the market
November or
closes.
something like that, I think, when
Yeah.
he
Okay.
finally gets it all put together. But he's usually pretty thorough on it, too, so.
Yes.
Yeah, because, I mean, to me, from being a consumer in our house, it's a habit. There was no market, so you got in the habit of going to Wright City and buying. Now there's another option, so you have to develop a habit that doesn't just start. You have, over time, maybe 2 years, all of a sudden you think, oh, today's the day. And then you start changing your purchasing patterns. And so I was kind of curious how that was for everybody else.
Well, it's certainly from appearances that there were a greater number of customers and vendors than what they had the previous year.
Any questions or comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of tourism in the amount of $1,267.62.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderperson Kessler?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
The only other thing that I have for you under operational updates is I'd like to ask Chris to give you a brief explanation of the situation with Lehman Construction. I sent you all an email, but in case there are any questions or whatever, he can give you a brief on kind of how that all unfolded.
Notice she said brief twice.
Yeah.
So, Lehman Construction was the second highest bidder on the Warrenton intersection project. They were, I think, $600,000 or higher than the lowest bidder, which was Unnerstall Construction. We received an email from John Kramer, who's our engineer from Gonzales, on the project, basically stating that that Lehman Construction had protested the awarding of the bid to Unnerstall because there was a mandatory pre-bid meeting. I reviewed the documentation provided by Kramer and Gonzales. I believe they handled the situation properly. Essentially, there was one person here representing 2 companies that were going to originally bid the project together. They did not sign in for both companies, just the one company. They were both Unnerstall companies. I'm sure there's some relation there, but I don't want to assume that. Essentially, Kramer, after that question came up, John Kramer, our engineer, then clarified that with Unnerstall, who was here representing you. The bid specs were not specific, that you had to have an employee of your company there representing you in order to participate in the bid process. So I think Gonzales and John Kramer handled the situation appropriately. They clarified it before the receipt of the bids. The bid was properly awarded. I did have some email correspondence with the representative of Lehman Construction. He did inform us that he was going to protest it, the award of the bid with the state of Missouri. However, we're not controlled by the Office of Purchasing and Bidding and Purchasing under the state of Missouri. I basically informed him we thought it was appropriately handled. He filed a protest with them. They then told him exactly what I said, that we're not governed by that agency, that's only for state bids. We have not heard anything else. The bid was awarded, it was properly done. So just giving you guys an update of it. And Gonzalez handled it appropriately as well.
So the recap is, two companies came in with one representative, I assume figuring they were going to bid jointly on the project. There was some fallout between the two companies, and they bid separately as opposed to together.
Well, no, one of them, the one company decided not to bid because they got awarded another big project.
Oh.
So there was no fallout. He was just there because they were going to bid it jointly, and then one company said, we're not going to bid it with you. Hunter proceeded with the bid, but he was the representative that was there at the mandatory pre-bid meeting for both companies. So.
And we have not heard back from them since you sent them their emails providing proof, other than what you just said about the state purchasing.
Correct. Yeah. So there is no protest, but after reviewing the documents, the bid documents, how Gonzalez handled it, it was appropriately done. Was that brief?
Yeah, that was like super brief.
I had that pressure, the double brief.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be hearing from Finance Manager Gabrielle Curry.
The only item I have is the accounts payable in the amount of $790,786.52 for the month.
Any questions?
I got mine answered already.
What's that?
I got mine answered already.
Any comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $790,786.52.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Schultz. If we get a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderperson Casterly.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be hearing from the Economic Development Director, Michelle Slenther.
Good evening. First thing I have for you is my economic development update, and I'd like to point out that we have someone interested in opening a business in Warrenton. This is a new business to our area, and we don't have anything currently like it, so if this would come to fruition, this would be, I think, a very neat business and draw a crowd for our community. The other thing I'd like to mention is that I followed up with Bill Moore from East Central Broadcast in reference to the property in Pinckney, and things are moving along. They have heard back from the FCC, and they are moving forward with it, so hopefully in a few weeks we should see something and possibly have an offer on the IDA what was the IDA property in Truesdale.
How much of that property were they going to purchase?
I'm sorry?
How much of that acreage?
They're looking to purchase the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the property on Pinckney Road? The whole thing?
The whole thing. Are you getting excited?
I'm getting excited. I don't get excited that easily. Wow. That would be great.
So hopefully we'll hear something in the next few weeks. And then the only other thing I have for you is in the packet this evening, there was a chamber after hours, all about signs and shirts, is having an after hours Thursday, October 13th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. They want you to come and check out their new location. They're going to have food, drinks, games, and giveaways.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one question. At the bottom there, you have received one lead from
RCGA,
the region, and that's St. Louis Regional Growth Association,
Mhm.
right? We do not have location with rail, 100,000 square foot facility.
So that they sent us information to see if we had something in our area. We're on an email blast we get from them, and that was there, so I went ahead and looked. Josh Beck does get that as well. So we did not have anything in the city of Warrenton that would fit, but Josh Beck did get this, so he will be looking at Warren County and Montgomery County.
That's what I was wondering. if
That was
they-
my question also, because to me, that would have been a logical thing you would have forwarded to that group.
His name is not there. I do forward to them so that way he is aware of it. First thing I do is I check to make sure that he or Steve or both are on that list.
Okay.
And you did do that?
Yes.
Is it forwarded it on? Okay.
No, because they had already
They
received it
already
from
got it.
RCG.
Okay.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
that's what, because that's, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
That was the only one I had.
All right. Next item on the agenda, thank you, Michelle. Next item on the agenda will be bills or ordinance. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 38-16.
So moved.
Second.
Is that Alderman Miller first? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey.
An ordinance amending and restating ordinance number 2272 of the City of Warrenton, Missouri, imposing a sales tax for the purpose of funding capital improvements at the rate of 1/2% pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of 94.577 RSMO, imposing a sales tax for the purpose of providing funding for economic development at the rate of 1/2% pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of Section 67.1305 RSMO, providing for submission of the proposals to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the special election called and to be held in the city on August 2nd, 2016.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 38-16.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance amending and restating ordinance number 2272 of the City of Warrenton, Missouri, imposing a sales tax for the purpose of funding capital improvements at the rate of 1/2% pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of 94.577 RSMO, imposing a sales tax for the purpose of providing funding for economic development at the rate of 1/2% pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of Section 67.1305 RSMO, providing for submission of the proposals to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the special election called and to be held in the city on August 2nd, 2016.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderperson Kessler?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0.
Can I ask a question on this? Now, last time we had appointments relative to the TIF committee, I know there was some concern about transparency in the process. So these are your appointments, Mayor, for the 5. Are you in the process of accepting names? Have you already thought about names? You're going
Yes.
to make those recommendations? Because typically what I would do when I know there's an appointment, I would contact Terry and say, if you can get a hold of the mayor, these are names I would think are appropriate. I haven't done that in this case, and I was just kind of curious as to where we were in the process, because if there's concerns about transparency, I think we want to be as transparent as we possibly can be. So could you kind of update us as to where you're on that?
And that's exactly it. Terry and I do talk on this. We have spoken on this, about who we're putting in there. There has been some recommendations, and there are some people that we're considering putting on, but those have not been firmed up yet.
They have not confirmed. Okay, thank you.
And the letters will go out to the county and to the school district tomorrow, notifying them of their requirement to appoint someone.
Does that answer?
Yes.
Well, good point, Gary. I just elaborate a little bit. So we are appointing, or the mayor is appointing 3 to this. So should we contact Terry for the names?
Contact Terry.
Right.
Okay.
And I just do that personally because, to me, I know Terry's at work. I don't know what the mayor may be at work. I don't want to interrupt him work. I don't want to interrupt him with his kids at home and his family. So I just typically go to Terry if I have a suggestion for an appointment, and she can, when she gets together with the mayor, they can share that
You can
information.
do both if you'd like, but Terry usually sorts out.
Well, I just wanted to understand the procedures, so I can call Terry and ask her who the names are and give her recommendations.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll move on to bill number 39-16 and entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 39-16.
So moved. I'll second.
Oh, it's the same time.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, second by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance of the City of Warrenton, Missouri establishing a relocation policy with respect to plans, projects, and areas designated for redevelopment pursuant to Chapters 99, 100, and/or 353 of the revised statutes of Missouri as amended.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of Bill number 39-16.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Alderman Miller, second by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance of the City of Warrenton, Missouri establishing a relocation policy with respect to plans, projects, and areas designated for redevelopment pursuant to Chapters 99, 100, and/or 353 of the revised statute of Missouri as amended.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderperson Casterly?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. And folks, we are at the end, so we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are so adjourned.